Hey guys, welcome back. Now it's been a while since I reviewed a monitor from LG. I think it's more than a year ago when I reviewed the UL27850. I forgot the name of that monitor. That was actually one of my favorite monitors of all time. But yeah, fast forward to now, I finally have another LG monitor review, and this is pretty much top of the line, right? So this is the LG Ultragear 27GN950. So first of all, talking about the specs, so this is a 4K panel, right? This is the very first 4K gaming monitor that we reviewed. Okay, so this is an IPS panel, and not just an IPS panel, it's a 10-bit IPS panel. Now this has a refresh rate of 144 Hz, which in the grand scheme of things might not seem a lot, but for having 144 Hz on a 4K screen, that's a really big deal. Now LG also boasts a response time of just 1 millisecond. We'll talk about that a bit later on, but this also supports VESA DSC. Now surprisingly, this has a DCI-P3 coverage of about 98%, which makes it an excellent option for content creators. Now this also supports G-Sync and AMD FreeSync Premium Pro, alright? So, just very quickly, if you're wondering what's the difference between normal FreeSync and FreeSync Premium Pro, one of the major differences is that it supports variable refresh rate with HDR on. Now at the back, you get a single DisplayPort 1.4 port, you get two HDMI 2.0 ports, you get two USB downstreams and a single USB upstream. Now do note, this monitor does not have built-in speakers, like I ever cared about that, but it does have a headphone out. Now first talking about the design, actually I have to say this base, the design of the base actually is one of my favorites. It looks pretty simple enough, but when you look closely, you realize this sort of like a boomerang leg that the base has. There's actually a bit of space underneath, so it sort of floats a bit, and it's got a really strong base at the back, actually pretty thick for a 27-inch monitor, but it's really sturdy. Now one thing I found weird though, at the back, you have sort of like a hook just at the back of the base. Now at first I thought maybe it was for your headphones, and then maybe I thought, okay, maybe it's for cable management. Now actually both didn't actually make sense, so I'm not quite sure what it's for. So if you guys do know, please let me know in the comments below. Now in terms of adjustability, it's pretty good. You can raise and lower the monitor. You can even rotate it as well to get it in portrait mode. You can't tilt it, which is kind of weird. But having said that, if I had to choose between all these level adjustabilities, needing to tilt it is probably pretty low down the pecking order. Now back to the design. Now at the front, it's another monitor that has a so-called bezel-less design. Now even though it doesn't have a plastic bezel, there is still black borders at the side. Now having said that, a lot of monitors that have this bezel-less design, they have at least about a centimeter of black bars around the side of the monitor. Now this has actually one of the slimmest. It's only at about 0.6 or 0.7 centimeters, which design, at least aesthetically, looks really nice. However, if you think about it practically, now if it's a desktop monitor, there's a pretty high chance you're gonna put a webcam at the top. Now if you do, depending on the webcam, it might actually cover a little bit of the top. Now it kind of depends on the webcam, of course. If your webcam has a bigger clip, it might even just cover, like for example, if you're on Google Chrome, it might actually cover some of the names of the tabs. But if your webcam has sort of a very small minimal clip, then yeah, it's not an issue. Now we come to what is probably the biggest design feature, aesthetically at least, and that's the RGB ring light at the back. Now a lot of us might scoff at the idea of RGB or any sort of color light at the back of the monitor, but I have to say, all things considered, this monitor has probably the best executed RGB light on any monitor I've ever seen. Now, first of all, the quality of the RGB lights at the back is really incredible. Now, if you look here at the bottom, it's sort of reflecting on the top of my table, which might not seem like a big deal, but consider that I've got 3 studio lights pointing at me right now. You shouldn't be able to see it. So the fact that you still see a bit of a reflection is actually pretty incredible. Now, if you have this monitor and you have a wall just behind the monitor, the RGB lights that you get sort of, well, it blew my mind a bit. I was actually very, very impressed. Now, a lot of times when, some monitor brands, they have this ring lights at the back, you sort of know it's there, but you never see it. With this one, yeah, you definitely see it. Now it has a few different options. You've got a few static options, and then of course you have sort of like a cycling motion where it cycles through the different RGB colors. Now at the back on the wall, it looks absolutely beautiful, and all you RGB fans out there, you're gonna be drooling. Now you can actually control the RGB, or you have your RGB control options right next to the joystick for the menu. You get sort of a scroll wheel. So from that, you can sort of cycle through the different options, or you can just press and hold it to switch it off altogether. Now, LG even added a feature which is, well, debatable, but it's, it's very practical in a sense as well. So it has two modes, the sound sync mode and the video sync mode. So what they do actually is they sort of sync the colors to what you're doing, either by sound or by video. And it's actually pretty cool to watch, and actually adds to the whole immersive feel of it. And even after all that, all those RGB features and all that, at the front, it does not look out of place in your work from home setup. It really is the Jekyll and Hyde of the ultimate gaming monitor and the ultimate work from home or productivity monitor. Now, talking again about the IPS panel, color-wise, absolutely no complaints. Having a 10-bit panel monitor really gives you so much more range in terms of color, whether you're gaming or even if you're doing productivity work. It was a whole new level for me. I'm kind of used to having 8-bit panels, so this was a real step up. Now again, with a DC IP3 coverage of 98%, with HDR600, coupled with the fact that it's a 4K resolution, this is now my dream editing workstation monitor, and it's actually making me consider like switching to 4K from my current 4040p. Now, in terms of gaming, it has been fantastic as well. Playing AAA titles on it has been a step up from almost any monitor that I've played so far, and well, obviously I need to say this, but you need your PC specs to match the monitor, and we'll talk a bit about that later on. But yeah, it has a refresh rate of 144 Hz, and so if you were to play some FPS titles, it wouldn't look that out of place as well. Although having said that, I know a lot of FPS gamers would prefer a higher refresh rate, so if you're the kind of person, maybe this isn't for you. Now, like I said earlier, LG boasts a response time of 1 millisecond, just one. However, to get that 1 millisecond, you're gonna have to go to the faster mode in the settings, which you can access with the joystick. When I put it on faster, I realized that, in certain times you get a bit of a halo effect while gaming. So I think my recommendation is probably just stick to fast or maybe even normal. Now you also get a lot of, like gamery assistant tools under the hood. Now you get a crosshair, which I think a lot of monitors do have. You get a built-in crosshair that you can activate on the screen, but you also get something called black stabilizer. So what that does is it sort of adjusts like the contrast ratio. So if let's say you're watching a show, just bring the black stabilizer all the way down, you get better contrast ratio and an overall better like movie or show watching experience. Now, if you play games and you play a lot of games where you need to pick out the enemy in the dark spot or something like that, just bring the black stabilizer way up and you have a better chance of spotting them. Now, my only complaint about the panel is that I've actually noticed a bit of backlight bleed at the bottom left and the bottom right. Now, I tried to pick this out on my crappy camera and it wasn't that obvious on camera. So I'm gonna borrow some footage from the tech chat, alright, that shows it a lot more obvious. Now, is that a deal breaker for me? Absolutely not, alright? It's one of those things where you have to look for it to know it's there most of the time. If you're playing games, you don't actually notice it. Maybe if you're playing certain games like AAA titles and it happens to be a lot of dark areas, especially at the bottom left and right, you might notice it a bit, but not a deal breaker by any means and not noticeable. So overall, it's still a pass. Alright, so let's talk about the price of the LG Ultragear 27GN950. Alright, now this is where it gets a bit perplexing, I have to admit. Now, in the US, you can get it for about 799 Singapore dollars. But in Singapore, it's 1,399 Singapore dollars. Now you might think that, it's because of the currency conversion and all that. But if you were to convert 1,399 Singapore dollars to US dollars, that's about 1,040 US dollars. Now that's like over $300 Singapore price difference between the two. And I don't understand why it has to be that much. I mean, being in Singapore, anybody who buys a lot of tech in Singapore, I'm sure you're kind of used to the fact that you're gonna have to pay a bit more in Singapore than, let's say, in the US because of different reasons like tax and shipping and all that. But $300 more? I don't quite understand it. Now, there is the chance, of course, that I got the price wrong, but I mean, I checked the LG website in the US and that's the price that they put. Now, would I recommend this monitor? Well, yes and no, right? Now, first of all, there are so many features on this monitor that make it really top-notch, right? And you would be hard-pressed to find any other monitor that has all of these features in a single package. Now, I do think it's a mistake that they put HDMI 2.0 ports at the back. I think they really should have gone with 2.1 at least to make it a little bit more future-proof. Now, I'm not going to recommend this based on price because I think there's a more important issue here at hand. Now, before you even think about getting this monitor, you need to check and make sure that you have the gaming rig to match. Now, on my setup, I've got an RTX 3070, right? And I barely got over 60 FPS on games like Shadow the Tomb Raider, right? So you're gonna need a top-notch PC, basically top of the line in every single aspect to really make full use of this monitor. And honestly, at 27 inches, I feel like you're not really getting the full benefit of 4K because honestly 1440p monitors at 27 inches still look pretty damn good. So yeah, the only kind of games that I would actually drive it to its 144Hz are your like FPS games and lower esports titles. But if you're a hardcore FPS gamer or hardcore esports titles, my chances are you're gonna prioritize FPS over resolution, and having 4K resolution on those games might be a little overkill. So honestly, if you're the kind of person, you might want to look elsewhere. So I really think that the target audience really are early adopters who are ready to splash cash on top of the line components and really wouldn't bat an eyelid on buying this. And if that's you, well, I can't think of a better monitor to make your PC master race dream complete. Alright, so that about wraps up my review of the LG Ultragear 27GN950. Now, if you like this video, you know what to do, and I would love it if you would subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to receive notifications on our next video. I'm JP, I'll see you real soon.